Everybody has something in their life that they've just tried and tried to like, but for whatever reason, it's not working out. And you may get to that point where you have to give up on it. Now, maybe we're talking about a human person, or maybe we're just talking about a video game. In fact, almost definitely we're talking about a video game at least once. When it comes to giving up on video games, there's two basic categories I like to split things up into. The first category is games that you've tried and tried to like, tried to enjoy it, and you just can't. And the other type of giving up on a game is giving up on acquiring a game. Maybe there's a game you've always wanted to purchase or obtain for your collection, and you've gotten to that point where you've just given up on the chance of it ever happening. Let's start with the games that you try to like first. Now, we all know how this happens. You're looking online for game recommendations, and you see this game that everybody says is amazing, and you think, oh my goodness, it's amazing? I could think it's amazing too. I better get this game. So what do? You get that game. And when that game finally arrives, you start playing it, and you're feeling really excited. You start playing it and you're like, you know what? I don't really like this. So what do? Do you give up right then and there? No. Well, maybe some people do, but not you. You find the will to carry on. And the first step is to go online and figure out, when does this game start getting good? And then maybe you'll see some answers like, oh yeah, once you get halfway through the game, then it starts getting really good. And you're thinking, whoa, 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 whoa. The first half of the game? Oh my goodness, why does it take that long? Does it turn into a completely different game? Why can't the first half of the game be good? And what if you get to that point in the game and you're still not enjoying it? Then what did you put all that time in for? Peace of mind? You probably should have just trusted your gut. You don't have all this extra time to be playing games you're not enjoying. After all, not enjoying playing a game is the number one thing that makes it hard to keep playing a game, which leaves you in kind of a tight spot because you're having to make the decision of, I'm not enjoying playing this game. How much more time do I dedicate to this before I give up on it? But even besides not wanting to put a certain amount of time into a game in order to figure out whether you enjoy the game or not, there are other things that may prevent you from progressing to a certain point in the game as well, such as not being able to because the game is too difficult for you. So here's a scenario that I bet most of you have experienced at one point or another. You're playing a game, and it's a difficult game. It's really kicking your butt. You're getting frustrated and you're starting to think this game sucks. And then for whatever reason, the game starts to click. And then in that moment, almost like magic, all of a sudden, that game is a good game now. It's just incredible how that works, right? The thing is, if you're not good at a game and you say that it sucks, fans of the game will almost immediately dismiss your opinion and just say, get good or whatever. And what's interesting about it is this: how many games that you've played that you're really good at would you say you don't like? Probably not very many, if any at all, which leaves us in kind of this weird philosophical chicken or the egg situation. Do you like those games because you're really good at them, or are you really good at them because you like them and are therefore really motivated to play them more? I think in most cases, liking a game first and foremost is what's going to motivate you to get good at it. But with that said, I think there are definitely some situations where somebody gets really good at a game and they still hate it anyway. For example, something like Ghosts and Goblins on NES. I know there are some people who went through the trouble to beat that game, but still felt it was a miserable experience. And they just felt like some sort of sick masochist going through the trouble of beating that dang game. Now, I actually enjoyed Ghosts and Goblins personally, but I understand that it's not a game for everybody. Something else that can happen is you give up on a game perhaps years ago, maybe even when you were a kid, and then you give it a chance all those years later, and for whatever reason, it clicks, and you're like, hey, good thing I gave this game another chance. For me personally, there are a whole bunch of games that I felt I had given up on, and then I tried them later and ended up actually really liking them. I think the issue for me is that I was just not patient enough giving those games a chance. The thing is that makes it tricky is there are so many games in existence that you can start playing a game easily get frustrated and instantly just be like, oh, what else can I play? And then you go to something else. It can be hard to give a game the proper chance. On the flip side of that, I'm a huge supporter of the mindset that not every game is going to be for everybody. And the thing is, if you're only playing the games that instantly grab you, the games you don't really have to give them much of a chance, you're just immediately on board, you're still going to have enough games to play because there's so many games out there. So really, I'm not seeing much harm there. But now it's time to talk about giving up on owning certain games. Of course, that doesn't necessarily mean you've given up on playing the game. After all, a lot of games have various ways that you can play them or even own them. Let's say you've always really wanted to own an original Genesis cartridge of Castlevania Bloodlines, and then you get to the point where you're like, screw it, I'll just get it on that compilation that it was included in. But then there are games like Panzer Dragoon Saga where there's no way to buy the game digitally. The only way to get it is to get a physical copy. That being said, there are ways to play the game, and you may just get to a point where you're like, do I really need to have the game in my collection? I'll just figure out a way to play it, and that's good enough for me. What happens for a lot of games is that the price will just keep going up and up and up and up. And it gets to that point where you're like, all right, well, I'm out of it then. There's no way I could ever afford getting it. I always thought it might be kind of cool to own a little Samson for NES, and let's just say that the ship for that set sail years and years ago. Of course, there is always the possibility of finding stuff out in the wild for either significantly cheaper than what it goes for on eBay, or perhaps even free, but personally, I haven't had a ton of luck with that for a long time, but maybe some of you have been luckier than I have. But with all that said, I want to wrap this video up by asking all of you, what's that one game you spent the longest amount of time on before you eventually gave up on it? I think we'll have some really funny answers. And remember, somebody might say a game that you really like, so don't get offended when you're reading through the comments and you maybe see a game you like in there that somebody else gave up on. So with that, leave those comments down below, and I will see ya in the next video.
He's the retro bird, yeah. And he's talking about video games. He's the